The mysterious disappearance of D.B. Cooper. D.B. Cooper, also known as Dan Cooper or just D.B., is a mysterious figure who rose to fame in November 1971 after he successfully hijacked a commercial flight and parachuted to the ground with $200,000 in ransom money. D.B. Cooper is sometimes known as simply D.B. In 1980, a little piece of the money that had been held as ransom was discovered along the banks of the Columbia River. The public's interest in the mystery was reignited when the money was found. Nevertheless, it did not lead to the revelation of any fresh information on the hijacker's identity or whereabouts, and the remainder of the money was never found. The person who took over the plane gave his identity as Dan Cooper, but because his name was confused with that of an early suspect, everyone started referring to him as D.B. Cooper. It is still an unresolved instance of air piracy in the annals of United States history, as he has never been located. His appearance was described as that of a Caucasian male in his middle years, dressed in a business suit and carrying a black attaché case. After the aircraft had reached a certain altitude, he announced that he had a bomb and made a demand for $200,000 in addition to 4 parachutes. Following the fulfillment of his demands, the aircraft continued its journey to Reno, where the hijacker freed the passengers and the majority of the crew to depart while keeping 4 crew members as hostages. After that, the plane turned its nose toward Mexico and Cooper eventually bailed out of the airplane over the rural Pacific Northwest and parachuted to safety. The FBI started their investigation right after, but they were never able to determine the name of D.B. Cooper or what happened to him after he jumped out of the plane using a parachute. To this day, his whereabouts are still unknown, and the investigation into what happened to him is still considered a mystery. The attempt to hijack. A guy who called himself Dan Cooper boarded a Boeing 727 in Portland, Oregon, in November of 1971 to travel to Seattle. He was carrying a briefcase and was dressed in a dark suit and a black raincoat. The demand was communicated to the pilot by the flight attendant, who then notified the FBI of the situation. The agents from the FBI complied with Cooper's requests and brought the money as well as the parachutes on board. At the point where they had arrived in Seattle, all of the passengers were let to deplane, and Cooper demanded that the flight take off once more, this time headed towards Mexico City with only himself, the pilot, the co-pilot, and the flight attendant on board. After the plane was underway, Cooper gave the crew the instruction to depressurize the cabin while flying at an altitude of less than 10,000 feet. At 8:13 p.m., he fastened the money bag around his waist, opened the door to the rear air stair, and then stepped out into the night sky, never to be seen again. The fall through the parachute. According to the information provided by the FBI, Cooper ejected from the aircraft using a parachute and landed around 7 miles north of Ariel. However, the precise location of his landing is still unknown, and there is no sign of Cooper anywhere in the area since he jumped. Even while it is impossible to know for sure, the majority of people believe that Cooper was able to safely reach the ground. Cooper needed to make a precise jump from a low height while it was completely dark out. This would have required a significant amount of ability and experience on his part. Although others believe that Cooper might have been killed in the fall, the FBI is proceeding with the investigation as though Cooper is still alive. Investigators have devoted a significant amount of time and effort over the past few decades to the search for clues and potential leads related to Cooper's disappearance. Speculations regarding the whereabouts of D.B. Cooper. The circumstances behind D.B. Cooper's disappearance continue to be one of the most puzzling in the annals of American history. People have been wondering what became of him and where he is at this point ever since he took over Northwest Orient Flight 305 in 1971 and began holding passengers hostage. During this time, the FBI will continue its investigation into the case. One scenario proposes that Cooper was able to survive the parachute jump and make it to safety. He then used the money from his ransom to establish a new name and start a new life someplace else. Others believe that he perished after jumping from the plane, possibly as a result of the freezing weather or as a result of the fact that he was unprepared for the jump. There is also the possibility that Cooper was an experienced parachutist and that he may have landed safely, but that he succumbed to his injuries shortly afterward, causing his death. The parachute and some of the money were eventually found in their respective locations. He reported to Boeing that he discovered an adjustable spindle in a tie, claiming that it was exactly like D.B. Cooper's. According to him, he had a conversation with veteran FBI investigators who had worked on the case, and they informed him that they were unaware that the tie had an adjustable spindle. Mr. Eulis plans to file a lawsuit against the FBI on Wednesday under the Freedom of Information Act to compel the government agency to allow him and a DNA expert to study the tie to obtain information that can be used for ancestry genealogy. That gives us the ability to take D.B. Cooper's DNA and sort of reverse engineer this and identify his family, nephews, nieces, and people of this nature, he said to Boeing. That gives us the ability to take D.B. Cooper's DNA. According to the amateur investigator who spoke with Boeing, the FBI recently denied his request under the Freedom of Information Act to study the tie, which prompted him to file a lawsuit against the agency. They've given access to the tie 2 separate times before to private scientists, private individuals, once in 2009 and once in 2011, and this could solve the case, he stated to Boeing. In 2016, the FBI made public its decision to discontinue its investigation into the case. Boeing was informed by the government that it does not comment on pending or possible legal action. After tracing a rare chemical that was found on the tie before to a lab where the suspect had worked in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Mr. Eulis stated in November that he has found a man who he suspects is D.B. Cooper. This was done after he traced a rare chemical that was detected on the tie previously. According to information provided on the FBI website, one person from our list, Richard Floyd McCoy, is still a favorite suspect among many. Less than 5 months after Cooper's flight, we were able to track down and apprehend McCoy for his involvement in a similar kidnapping of an airplane and subsequent escape by parachute. However, McCoy was eventually eliminated from the running because he did not match the nearly identical physical descriptions of Cooper that were offered by 2 flight attendants, in addition to other factors. There is also the widespread belief that Cooper was a member of the armed forces who were operating undercover in some capacity. There are rumblings that he was a highly trained CIA agent on a covert errand to deliver a package of classified information. Last but not least, others think Cooper was actually someone else entirely and that the mystery surrounding his true identity has not yet been solved. This is not impossible to imagine given that the only physical description of Cooper is based on stories provided by passengers who were on the flight themselves as eyewitnesses. For 45 years after the hijacking, the Federal Bureau of Investigation maintained an active investigation and built an extensive case file, but ultimately did not reach any definitive conclusions. The crime remains the only unsolved case of air piracy in the history of commercial aviation. The FBI speculates Cooper did not survive his jump, for several reasons. The inclement weather on the night of the hijacking, Cooper's lack of proper skydiving equipment, the heavily wooded area he jumped into, his apparent lack of detailed knowledge of his landing area, and the disappearance of the remaining ransom money, suggesting it was never spent. This is the end of today's video. Give your precious feedback in our comment section below. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos.